Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to what I think is going to be a very, very informative conversation here because we talk a lot very informally on this channel, podcast settings, video format, everything about the state of the industry from day to day. So at this point, I had to bring in one of the experts, somebody who is literally there day to day with the data and putting out reports constantly. So Mat Piscatella. I appreciate you joining me. Can you just let the good people out there know who you are, what you do?
Sure thing. Thanks for having me around. My name's Matt. I've been in the video game industry about 20 years. Wow. Started at Activision way back in 2005. Spent a bunch of years there. Spent a bunch of years at Warner Brothers Games. Left Warner as the vice president of sales planning and analysis for the games division. And then for the last 9 years, I've been at the NPD Group and now Circana as the video game executive director and what they call a thought leader. I did not give myself that title, but that's what they call me. And I, like you said, live in the data and try to figure out what the heck's going on in this big, crazy industry.
I think that's everybody's trying to figure it out, because when we're a lot of the people online who are keeping tabs on the industry, whether it's for just video game releases, and they don't necessarily care about maybe sales or stuff, but they're very plugged in. So we're quite different from the mainstream, people who just go in and they'll buy what they see on the shelf, or they might see a commercial for something, or they're gift giving at the holiday season. There's a very different thought process, and at times that's kind of illustrated in reports that you would do over there with Circana. So I thought it was very, very interesting to see from your perspective some of the stuff that we keep talking about here. But we did have that, and it was funny one of the things that reminded me of it was, the PS2 turned 25 the other day, and I had to stop and go, wow, it really was 25 years ago that system came out, because I even remember the marketing for it when I was much younger, building up to it and it being this mythical device that was coming out. But looking back on it now, kind of the impact on the industry, where it went on to sell more than, well, now 160 million, that Sony updated that number. But I had a couple of fun questions for you with that I sent over, because you said you have to look into some of the research, since you probably have to dig back to the archives. And that's one of the really interesting things about Circana. You guys have been tracking this stuff for decades, literally, at this point.
Yeah, we've been since the early 90s, and our current data set goes all the way back to 1995. So yeah, it's a heck of a big data set, to say the least. And it's been a minute since I dug into the PS2 data, but that was a fun thing to go look back on the anniversary. And I did some research, and let's get into it.
So the thing that was always really fun to me that you'll occasionally put out, and you'll do it, I think, for anniversaries or just whenever something pops up that's meaningful for like this day in like 90 or like 99 or something. But you'll occasionally be like, oh yeah, this random game must have been found at retail somewhere and they sold it. And it's super strange when that pops up, but it's also really, really interesting. But I wanted to go back to that like the first month, we'll even say, on the market for the PS2, because again, I remember the midnight release lines, all the marketing. It was crazy, because the PS1 had really burst onto the scene. Here comes the PS2, that at one point some people were thinking foreign adversaries were using to launch missiles and stuff. It was the rumor mill back then was crazy. It was like you just ran with whatever was being said on the playground or at the water cooler. But the first month for that PS2, what was the best selling game? I thought about that. What was like this? I guess you'd consider it the system mover at that point.
Well, for the PS2 in its first month and first year, it was actually Madden NFL 21 or NFL 2001.
Wow. Okay.
In the launch month, it did about 150,000 units. The other two big games of its launch month were Tekken Tag Tournament and SSX. So those were the big three of the launch month. In the first year, it was also Madden. Madden moved units throughout this, like the early 2000s all the way to today, but it was really huge in the 2000s. And the other two big games in terms of the sales for the PS2's first year were Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec and then Madden NFL 2002. So it was such a powerhouse franchise. It still is. But at the time, we had Madden Holiday, we had all of those various really crazy. Madden was kind of the big game before Call of Duty, before any of these other big franchises we know of today. But really, it was Madden in that first year and it kind of shows like that mass market buyer that really jumped onto the PS2 pretty early.
Yeah. So what was I had brought up the fact that you guys could sometimes just track retro games that'll randomly sell. What was the last PS2 game that you guys have recorded that sold? I said that wasn't a sports game because I was like, okay, I could see a Madden randomly being found at a Five Below or some random retail store where it comes out of the $5 bin or something was buried. Is there like a PS2 game that you found that sold last that wasn't a sports game?
Yeah, it happens a lot more than you'd think. And these are titles that, are registered as new sales. They're just somewhere. And then all of a sudden someone says, well, I guess we put this on the shelf. So in September alone in the US, there were over 20 titles from the PS2 that sold at least one unit. I grabbed a couple names. Capcom Classics Collection. Someone bought one of those somewhere.
Okay.
Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. There was a unit out there of that. Nocturne had a unit floating around.
Okay.
Shrek 2. Someone bought Shrek 2. I mean, great. Good for you. And there was a God of War unit that sold for PS2 too. So like we see these, and it happens for a lot of different systems. Especially the most popular systems that sold a lot of physical games, you'll still see them trickle in. Whereas like some of the systems that didn't do so well, we haven't seen a unit from some of those for a long, long time. But PS2, 360, like those big platforms, you'll still see them blow through.
Wow, interesting. That's so funny. I feel like if I looked at the data, I would just want to look all the way at the bottom for, okay, what was like the weird retro game that sold that month?
And I do it all the time because it is pretty fun. I never thought anyone else would care. And then I just kind of threw that out there a couple weeks ago or last week. The days are weeks these days. Threw that out there last week and people really seem to dig it. So we'll see what we can do. Maybe I can start doing a couple more of those kind of drops here and there just for funsies to see what's going on out there.
Sure. So I did want to also bring this up for the viewers out there, listeners, kind of the difference between the gaming market now versus then, like 2001 versus we're still working through 05. Or 2025. So I'd say like 2024, even like the comparison for a full year, like how much bigger is the industry now versus then? Because sometimes just having the dollar amount in front of you is like, okay, that is quite different.
Yeah. And, this really explains a lot about what's going on. And, for you and your audience in particular, who are like among the most engaged with gaming and really the most knowledgeable and the most focused on like the intricacies of what's going on out there. It could be a little bit surprising, I'm sure. So back in 2001, of course, everything was physical. The US gaming market at that time in 2001 ended up being around $10.8 billion, right? Pretty big number. In 2025, we're estimating the US market's going to end at $57.9 billion. Wow. So that's an increase of about 5.4x from 2001 to today. And in that number is hardware, accessories, and all content, physical, digital, mobile, PC, whatever, and just dedicated products. This doesn't include things like PCs that can be used for multiple things or gaming keyboards or mice because those have multi-use functions. Just talking just gaming. So we've had this massive increase. Now, that's kind of mind-boggling just to think about it going from 10.8 to 57.9 billion in 20-something years. It's a huge increase. The challenge, and I think where everything gets messed up for the industry today, is that this industry was a growing every year kind of business. More gamers, more people playing, more ways to play, and every year it just got a little bit bigger. And then, we get to 2019, it was a $45 billion business, right? So, $13 billion smaller than it is today because in 2020, we had the big boom. We went from, $45 billion in 2019, and in 2021 we had hit a peak of 61 billion, right? So in just 2 years, we grew $16 billion in spending because people, more people were playing more and spending more. And that's when you saw all the investment come in, all the people building studios, all the massive hiring sprees, thinking that growth was going to continue. And it just hasn't, right? So
Right.
that 21 peak of about 61 billion, it's going to compare to about 58 billion this year. The market is staying close to that peak, but we have not yet been able to go above it. So we went from a growth industry to one that really matured basically overnight. And what we're seeing now are all the growing pains of that transition.
Right. And that's kind of the issue that I think people have been really discussing over the a couple of years, is if the industry itself isn't growing, but the budgets are, it's like where's the breaking point? What do they do in terms of strategy? And that kind of leads into, I figure, what Microsoft is doing right now.
Oh yeah.
Because this is probably the most confusing to people right now is Microsoft. And sometimes, I mean, if you see recent comments from Satya Nadella when almost like he speaks in circles a bit there, but the idea of them kind of letting go of the console exclusivity and going heavy multi-platform, heavy into cloud, and trying to just reach a ton of people, as what they say that they're the biggest publisher. You start to realize that, oh wow, okay, so that's why Sony also looking towards PC and talking themselves about mobile, haven't really got off the ground yet, but then even looking at other forms of media, and Nintendo, theme parks, mobile, movies, merchandise all over the place. They're doing partnerships and reaching out to Lego, and they're all looking for different avenues. Because you're right, when you see the numbers on a chart and you see the line, not really, I don't say explosive growth, but more of a slope than anything else on the way up, it's like, oh, this is kind of what they're doing now. So Microsoft being one that's almost more the most aggressive and kind of in your face about it. What do you think about Microsoft right now with their current strategy?
Yeah, they signaled this type of intent a few years ago, and the ambition, as late as this time last year, was that bringing something like Call of Duty to Game Pass would result in explosive growth for the subscription service, would really offer that growth trajectory, more people subscribing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That didn't happen. Call of Duty, really resulted in like a 12 to 13 week boost to that spending, and then it kind of fell off, returned to the baseline. Hardware units actually declined year on year, which is kind of baffling if you think about it. That this game came to a subscription service and people just kept buying it on their platform of choice rather than staying subscribed to Game Pass for a while. And so that really signaled this need to change course. And they've changed course pretty aggressively. But like you said, when the industry had been a growth industry for decades, and now it's not even matching inflation, you have to find ways to grow the business when, we have, in the US in particular, and in some developed markets in Europe, we have, we've had a ceiling on player count, a ceiling on engagement. We can still try to get people to spend more, which is why, you're seeing higher prices as much as you are. But the idea is, if you can't grow the gaming audience, you can't grow the engagement, well, you got to find other ways to growth, which is other avenues or higher pricing or some combination of both. And everyone's doing it because they have to. They're just all doing it in slightly different ways.
Yeah, I think once we saw Microsoft make that 50% jump for Game Pass, it kind of felt like, I guess, the customer acquisition phase is coming to a close right now,
right?
And it's time to monetize further and what we have, and that's kind of it. So we saw those projections a while ago where they were thinking they might be able to close in on like 100 million subscribers by, I think it was 2028, or at least definitely by the end of this decade. Doesn't seem necessarily like that's going to be a reality with their current model, but that's going to be the thing. Do they have other methods of a free tier with ad support or other ways to do it? Because the $30 Game Pass tier it's hard for me as somebody even who's like, I'm playing all these games and I'm talking about all the stuff on the shows. It's hard for me to recommend it at $30. It's like, that's tough.
Yeah, and the play is the price increase is, as high as it is, you're going to lose some subscribers to that, but the bet is you're not going to lose enough subscribers to make that a losing play. And like you said, you start then pushing for user acquisition in other areas outside of just Game Pass, like you mentioned, other avenues, other partnerships to try to grow that audience. If it's going to, whether that's going to work or not, I don't know. There's certainly some challenges ahead of it, but in that business, in that company, you have to deliver growth, or
For
you're
Microsoft,
just
yeah.
not going to be around a long time. So it's just kind of where we're at.
Yeah, it kind of brings up their push to PlayStation, which based on even some of the results we've seen from Circana, where we'll see a Forza Horizon 5 all of a sudden show back up on the chart. It's like, whoa, that must have done really well. And here it's millions of copies, even just across the board with that. It seems like, at least for their PlayStation 5 ports early on, we've seen at least growth, probably found money almost for them based on the cost of porting versus what they're bringing in.
Oh, absolutely. And, back in the day, 15 years ago, the goal would be to move that player to your platform. But with the implementation of people's libraries, their friends lists, people are really kind of stuck into these, or I wouldn't even say stuck. They prefer to be in these ecosystems that they've built these libraries and friends lists and history and achievement or trophy histories. And the switching costs, it just doesn't happen like it used to happen. So going to players where they are, especially younger players who are more and more often choosing mobile or PC or platforms they already have access to, and playing the Fortnite, Minecrafts, and Robloxes of the world, rather than spending $60, $70 on a new game or spending $30 on a subscription. Like, the old paradigm, or the one that works for players that have been playing since the PS2, it's changing. It is changing rather remarkably and quite quickly.
The price sensitivity, it comes up a lot now online with games, but also systems. That's where I see it a lot, because there is a lot of almost brace for impact with PlayStation 6 and Microsoft's next outing, which they're like freely just about. They really want to. It seems like they really want to start talking about it, but they're kind of being held back a little bit. It feels like, because they could still be another year and a half, maybe even more off. But the thing with the PS5 that I noticed, it did go up in price, with the 550, but I was curious if it didn't seem like there was as much of an effect maybe as people were expecting on some of the initial sales for it. I don't know if that's because there's still a digital model technically that still has that 4. I know it's $499.9, but it still has that 4 in front of it, that psychological effect, or if just the $50 bump wasn't enough necessarily to move people off of the appeal, even we'll say, of Sony's system.
Right. It surprised me too. And we've been digging into this, not just in gaming, but across numerous categories that we track. Circana tracks over $3.3 trillion in consumer spending across what we call discretionary categories, things that are like outside of your mortgage or your car payment, or things you make the decisions on. We track $3.3 trillion of that. Gaming is about 58 billion, right? So we're talking a much bigger data set here. And what we're finding for these things that people buy, less often, right? Maybe they're buying a new console once every 7 years or 5 years, and maybe they haven't jumped in. There's this concept called invisible inflation. When prices increase on something, but because someone doesn't really pay attention that much, because they're buying something once every 3 to 5 years or something, they don't even notice that the price has increased, because that's just the price. That's fine. So there's a little bit of that going on. And we're also seeing a mix in the customer base for new consoles, older and more affluent buyers. So, we're seeing an increase not only in the age of people buying consoles over time, which is somewhat
I was curious
more
about that.
predictable, right? But in recent months, we're seeing a pretty big uptick in the percentage of console buyers that are from, higher income households, because, those people, they're continuing to spend because they're not feeling the impact of the higher prices in areas like food or car maintenance or insurance, right? Because they're just like, this is fine. I'll just keep spending. I'm not feeling it. But people who aren't that affluent, they're feeling it a lot. So we have a couple of things happening here, which has led to, I think, that better hardware performance than even I and you expected when we first started hearing about those price increases. Now, if that's going to stick around, if that's going to change, we'll see, particularly if we start seeing like health insurance costs go through the roof. But we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be kind of hard to tell over the next couple of, because holiday times come in, and at worst case scenario the credit cards even come out. It's usually we might find out even then. I'd even say February, because January people will get new systems, or Christmas money or whatever will spend as well. I always noticed when I worked in retail, I worked in gaming retail even for more than a decade. January ended up being one of our better months of the year.
Yeah, it's the gift cards, right? People come in ready to spend.
Yeah, next to December, it would go like December, then January. Those are like the two good months, because as soon as it'd be closed for New Year's Eve, so we'd kind of make up for that the next day. It'd be just nonstop busy, and the smaller stores or even GameStop would run some kind of buy two get one, and they'd clear out this. People would rush in basically, but it's almost like there's going to be this I don't say like almost like a lagging effect until February to see if that 550. Now the Xbox is Series X is 650. That is tough. It's like okay, but 550. All right, and then we have Nintendo with their most expensive system now. It feels like a 450 and 500. That is like new system, Pokemon. Yep. Like, what are you gonna do? It's probably gonna sell. Like it's gonna do well.
We have a couple points to really watch, right? First is Switch 2 and holiday. It's the first holiday for it. Will the mass market show up as the enthusiast audience did at launch? Will we continue to see that sales momentum? And like you said, like once we get out of that holiday window and the dust settles a little bit, just how much bigger are the declines going to be, not just on Xbox, but also on PlayStation, which has been declining, but not at as rapid a rate as the Xbox, just because we're so late in the cycle. So, some of those traditional console cyclicality things we see in terms of sales performance are still in play. But given everything else happening in the macro market, things are getting dialed up a little bit and a little bit more uncertain. But like you said, we'll really start seeing the impact of this come February, March, April.
Yes. Yeah. You mentioned the average age of the gaming consumer at this point, at least from what you guys are able to track with the demographics. And I've seen this as we've gone along. I've been really curious about the average age of the gamer at this point that's tracked, because it seems like it is consistently going up. Like each year as it's tracked, you see the surveys and stuff going, and they can only track what they can track with surveys and stuff. But it feels like the younger audience that's coming in isn't rushing to the console as fast as I probably was when I was younger. It seems like there's just so many things pulling them in all different directions right now.
It is. They're still choosing console to an extent, but not to the extent of, say, millennials were, or even Gen X. The audience that's the fastest growing in terms of the age group are actually 46 plus. Hey. So, take for that what you will. But the play incidence rate for younger people is still incredibly high. Over 90% of people under 24 are playing games, but where they're playing them and what they're playing is changing versus say what it was even 10 years ago. Like the choices they're making, the way they see something like Fortnite, not just as a game, but as a platform on its own. I play Fortnite. It's not I play PlayStation kind of thing. And so we are seeing these subtle differences in that part of the market. And right now the console manufacturers seem to be saying, all right, well, we're going to hike our prices, sell the consoles to that older, perhaps more affluent customer, and then we're going to go after the younger audiences with free to play, with more easily accessible games, and see what happens. We'll have to see how it works over time.
It's funny you mentioned 10 years ago. Fortnite wasn't even around 10 years ago. I feel like the free to play market has just like stormed onto the scene. And
the App Store, what didn't even exist? The App Store wasn't around until 2013, and now mobile is the biggest segment of gaming by a significant margin. Yeah, the amount of change in 15 years has been stunning.
That's the thing that people tend to also forget. Again, we're for like my audience, myself included, I don't really think that much about mobile gaming because it's like, is there a controller? Is there a PlayStation, Xbox, or Switch or whatever in front of me? I'm good. I'll use that. But the mobile gaming market, there's a reason a lot of these big companies like a Microsoft or even Nintendo and how Sony's doing a whole initiative to try to get games there, why it keeps coming up because it is that massive. It is actually kind of crazy when you see the numbers that get thrown around, like billions of dollars just for single games even. It's wild stuff how much a lot of us tend to almost ignore it, but it's this massive like behemoth of the market.
It is, and there's a big difference, right? So like the folks that are hearing this are the most valuable consumers. They will spend the most, they will spend the most time, they will be the most influential of friends and family, they're the most tuned in, but the number is small. Like it's a very small part of the market, but super powerful. That mobile audience, that they do not spend a lot per player, they do not spend a lot of time, but there are just so many of them. And so that's the trade-off, right? You're either trying to appeal to a very enthusiast part of the market that has very specific tastes and can be a little fickle, we've seen, or you try to get in the mobile space and take on Candy Crush. Like there are no like easy ways anymore because of the how entrenched some of the biggest properties are in the market. But that's the bet you're playing. Like how much of the audience can we get? How much of that do we think we can address, and what kind of return can we get out of that part of the market with our development resources? And that's kind of the math everyone's doing as more and more games get released all the time, and as the audience isn't keeping pace in terms of its growth.
Yeah, that mobile market, you go onto the App Store and just go to games, and it's just flooded with so a lot of games look kind of the same, to be honest, when you look at the screenshots.
And they're seeing the same kind of challenges in the mobile space that the console space is seeing in terms of like the biggest properties are the biggest properties, and cracking into that is, I mean, almost impossible. But if you can do it, the return is so big that it could be worth the risk, although the risk is extremely high.
Yeah, you have to almost do it by accident, like Sony with Helldivers 2. They were based on the marketing leading up to it. They seem to have more confidence in Concord, and then Helldivers 2 ends up crushing it. So it's
try forecasting this stuff. People go like, "Hey, what are the big games of early next year going to be?" I go, "I don't know. I haven't heard of them yet," because they come out and they find an audience or something happens and the reaction's quick that can't be found in a play test or a focus group. There's just something that happens that's just unquantifiable prior to launch for some of these games, which makes my job very hard a lot of the time.
You see it, I mean, you'll see it also on places like Steam, which I do tell people this now more than ever. It is, while it's a very crowded market and very saturated at different points, it does seem like a time where almost anyone, if they have an idea, there's a way, if you have enough determination, to get it to market and just see what happens. Because I see these games on Steam. You guys do track the Steam and digital stuff as well. I see this randomly. Games will just randomly pop up on Steam, and people will be like, "Look, hundreds of thousands of people are playing this game," and it's like Escape from Duck Off or something. It's supposed to be like a Tarkov thing, and I think it's hilarious.
Shooter, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. So like, oh, that's because like one or a couple people made it or something just for fun, and the internet latches on, and it's fairly priced. And it's it's one of those fun things. But it does remind me that I see 19,000 games on Steam released last year, and it has a lot of kind of AI junk at times. Things just get thrown in there. It's like, let's see what happens. But then occasionally you get these bright spots where it's like, okay, that's just kind of a gamer making a game and putting it out in the market and accepting it.
Or you'll see something like Peak show up for a while. You see these games pop into that Steam, like those Steam engagement charts we put out. And then they'll stick around, they'll go away, the new one will come in. The Steam player jumps around a lot more from game to game. They're much more tuned into like new kind of weird experiences that they might jump on for a little while. Whereas on the consoles, it's much more mass market. It's Call of Duty, Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, GTA, and everything else. So it is interesting to see these differences. It also leads to people kind of making assumptions based on Steam user numbers that they should not be applying to the total market, but they do it anyway. But that's a whole nother side conversation.
I heard you throw out GTA there for a minute. GTA 5 famously came out just before the PS4 and the Xbox One,
Yep.
and we are. It feels like on the doorstep of GTA 6. We'll see if they delay it again or something, but for now, we believe we're 7 months away from it, 6.5 months or something away from the game coming out. What are your expectations for that kind of a launch, like that week?
Yeah, the biggest entertainment launch of all time across any medium by a significant margin. So GTA 5 is the best-selling game in our tracking in both units and dollars, going all the way back to 1995. It's the number one selling game of this year in units.
Wow. All right.
And ranks 20th in dollars. And, it came out in 2013 originally. So it's set up to be that massive now. Will that have a carry-on impact in re-energizing investment, getting people to buy more consoles, or, will people wait? The last time it launched this late in the cycle, it didn't really do a whole lot for consoles at the time. But I think it had a bigger impact on the next generation. But, that stuff gets really difficult to kind of parse out. But, I think GTA 6's biggest competitor is going to be GTA 5, and making sure that they really encourage all the people that continue to buy and play GTA 5 to make their way to GTA 6.
What do you think the read is on that? Because the GTA 5 Take-Two, just occasionally show up, be like, oh yeah, it's sold X amount. Now they say it's like 215 million copies. I'm trying to figure out who's even still buying it anymore, because it feels like everyone has a copy, multiple copies.
They keep buying it every single month. I mean, it's the biggest game of all time. Like it's the video game. I don't know. Like it's a whole different thing. There's GTA 5, and there's literally everything else. It's its own universe in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was at least back in the day in 2013, 2014 when it came out. I remember like the mom would come up with the kid, and the kid puts it on the counter, and I got to flip it around, and like some 12-year-old kid, and we'd have to read down the label on the back. I'm sure this, and it's like a book of the GTA 5 one, and you get to the end and you go, would you like to buy this still? Like, yep. Okay, well, there you go.
There you go.
The mom's like, yeah, whatever. Okay, I guess. So that was
GTA and Call of Duty are for kids, and Pokemon's for 35-year-old people or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing I did want to ask you about is the digital physical situation, because the digital era, I think, even again, a lot of the plugged in audience for my channel is like physical all the way. I want physical games. I know. I look around, you see the writing on the wall almost. I do this Click R3 podcast with Ryan, big physical collector guy. And even I'll joke with him, like, I mean, digital's here, man. There's not a lot you could do. It does feel like every year it's just more and more digital, to where I've wondered if the next generation systems will even have a disk drive. I assume Microsoft won't, because it doesn't work for Play Anywhere. Everything kind of has to be digital for Play Anywhere to work. So Sony, I guess, maybe the last holdout, along with kind of Nintendo, depending on how you categorize the game key card. But how are we looking right now? I was curious, because in the US, how are we looking right now? Digital, physical.
So don't get mad at me, Spawn Wave audience. I respect you and love you and want you to be happy. No, every time I see one of your polls about this, like the audience reaction on the channel to the polls are way more physical forward than the total market is. I agree with you. I don't think the next Xbox has a disk drive, or if it does, maybe you can plug in a USB something, but I don't. It's just not going to be a big thing. Given the current, given the current attach rates of the PlayStation add-on drive to the digital versions of that console, I'm 50-50 that that'll happen again. I'm not sure. There are a lot of parts of the world where physical is much more important than it is in, say, the US, so perhaps they still do it. I don't know, but yeah, we're getting there. Definitely not for whatever PS7 may or may not be, but that's a long time from now. Switch is like the last, or Nintendo is the last remaining of the physical forward publishers. Even they're starting to kind of make that flip. At least in the US, other parts of the world are going to be different, but Nintendo still maintains a physical focus and a retailer focus, whereas the other manufacturers have kind of effectively or nearly effectively moved on to a great degree. So, I mean, we'll have to see. there is that dedicated buyer that loves physical, but like you said, that mix is continuing to shift. And with, the most recent Switch model, we're seeing that shift happening a little bit faster, even on Nintendo. So, it's a slow thing. It takes a long time for that transition, but it's definitely in motion.
It's a fair amount more digital than physical.
Yeah, that's a lot of words to not give you a specific number, because I'm scared. And no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's happening, and it's a significant portion of volume.
Got it. I am curious though, Matt. What have you been playing?
Oh man, so I just finished Keeper, which
I
is
keep seeing that. It keeps advertising it to me. I'm like, I feel like I should. How long was it? Is it
4.5 hours?
Oh, okay. Maybe I will look at it then.
Beautiful animation, gorgeous environments, really clever storytelling. The controls start a little wonky, but that's intentional, and it goes places. There's great. There's a whole bunch of ways. I don't want to spoil anything. It's not just walking around as a lighthouse. There's a lot of things that happen, and it was so charming and endearing. I loved that to pieces. Working through Ghost of Yotei a little bit, kind of, it just feels very video gamey to me. But I'm gonna try to power through that. And I'm still working through the Super Mario Galaxy remakes on Switch too. So that's kind of been where I'm at. But Keeper, man, what a great game. Oh, and the Indiana Jones DLC, which there is a pipe puzzle in the Indiana Jones DLC. I just want to talk to the person who designed. I just want to have a conversation about that pipe puzzle. If you've played it, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then it's a great game, great DLC, but that pipe puzzle.
Yeah, I got to go back and do the DLC. I am almost. I'm like 5 or 6 trophies away from the platinum for Yotei, so I've invested quite a bit of time into that one. I actually enjoyed it more than Tsushima, I think, overall.
Oh, cool. Okay,
so that was pretty high on my marks. Yeah, I was playing Yotei and then Pokemon Legends ZA like on and off at the same time. So social media was like looking for me. They're trying to find me there. I was like, oh, okay, I'm done with Yotei for today. Okay, I'll pick up ZA. But so I've been going back and forth on those. But the game so far, I guess, kind of a game that surprised me a bit is actually Dispatch. I'm a little surprised at this one. It's I say game in quotes because it's more of an interactive, like Telltale almost.
It's Telltale, sure.
I do like kind of the more cynical take on the superhero genre a bit, like The Boys and Jed V, all that stuff. It's fun to me to see superheroes in a different light, and that's kind of what this is too. So it's been good. I don't want to really spoil much about it because it's like an actual show that you watch, and it times quick time event into, or you're a dispatcher, so you send superheroes or to different things happening in the city, and it's kind of almost a puzzle game there. But then you just move on and do a lot of the cutscenes and show. And then at the end of each episode, because they do have it split into episode, and I think every week they're going to do 2 episodes. At the end of the episode, they then tell you how you match up with the decisions you made throughout with the rest of the community, like a percentage. Kind of reminds me of like Catherine from back in the day, where they would do that. Your moral choices. How does that 52% of people did the same thing you did, or you were in the minority, 30 some odd percent went along with you on this. So it's a fun. It's been fun so far, but I mean, I think they just did the other 2 episodes, so we're 4 episodes in. It's like $30 for 8 episode season. So
yeah, I picked it up. I bought it. I figured it'd be a good coffee on Sunday morning kind of game. So I've been holding it for this weekend to dive in. Looking forward to. I've heard a lot of really good things about the storytelling in particular, so I'm kind of into that idea. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, good stuff. And I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you about here is right now there's a pretty serious concern and back and forth around AI in gaming. And I keep seeing it pop up. It's like people at first were saying that they weren't. I saw this online a lot of absolute takes of I'm not going to play anything that's ever made with AI. And my thought was the company's not going to tell you they make it with AI until like 3 years later at GDC when they go over how they made the game. And then you'll be like, oh, well. And now it's kind of, we're starting to learn about these things in job listings. We're hearing about how some of them are developing their own internal like language models that almost assistants that are working with. And there's even concerns that we might see even more layoffs, say in gaming, if executives start to think that AI in general could just replace entry level. And all that stuff is kind of happening even outside of gaming. But then we see Amazon with a lot of their gaming stuff get cut yesterday, day before.
Yeah.
And this is interesting because I am wondering how that would end up affecting even the economy of games as we go along, to where developers, it's not really a job that people then aspire to like they did 15 years ago.
Yeah, it goes well beyond just the gaming side about what it could do and what it probably can't do the way people want it to do, especially those in positions of authority that are making those kind of job decisions with organizations. Gaming's always been a leader when it comes to implementing AI through machine learning. Like back in the day, AI, more traditional AI, and now with the Gen AI stuff, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. Now, just how that gets fully implemented or how deeply, that will ultimately depend on the results it's able to achieve. And we're so early days. It sure seems like the cart's getting put in front of the horse in a lot of these with these, and really like a lot of these layoffs we're seeing that, oh, we're going to use AI to find efficiencies. It kind of seems like an excuse more than anything when it comes to that. Like I have that feeling. If you're making that meme of the wrestling cat in the chair, and he's kind of like, growth was 2%. He's whatever, but we're laying off 10,000 people. He gets a little happier, and then we're laying off 10,000 people and implementing AI. The guy goes crazy, and that's the investment community getting excited about that. I don't know, man. Like it's wild, and it's going to impact everything. And I don't know where the hell it's going to go, man. But it's happening very, very quickly.
Yeah, because I would see this as something that could potentially even would affect, you assume, consumer spending for games, because as you mentioned, it's kind of that extra money. It was always for me back in the extra money you had left over for that college week of I'll deal with the ramen noodles. I want Grand Theft Auto San Andreas this week. It's like that. But as you mentioned, a lot of affluent households and ages are buying these different systems, but that would even affect jobs that are higher up in some of these corporations that would get paid a lot of money. But really the whole point is it could just lower consumer spending overall, because you're probably going to buy a lot of stuff if AI is replacing you or laying you off. Yeah,
it could. I mean, you have other folks saying that this is going to lead to a hiring increase. I don't really comprehend the math on that, but I'm sure not going to say I know what's going to happen. This is all kind of more prophecy than forecast at the moment, just because of all the uncertainty and the variables and just how much we don't know about what's going on and what these tools can actually accomplish versus what they're promised to accomplish. So, I feel that way myself, that I wonder how this is all going to go. It sure doesn't seem or feel good at the moment, but I don't know. But yeah, the possibilities for where this might end up, not only for gaming, but for general consumers looking to do anything. Yeah, it could be incredibly impactful, or it could be far less impactful than people think. I don't know.
I think it's the uncertainty of it that people get really concerned about and worried and even fearful of. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen we talked about how 10 years ago, there was no Fortnite. It's like, man, what's going to happen in 10 years? Who knows?
Dude, what's going to happen in 10 days, man? Like every single day there's something where you're like, oh, okay, this major thing, like the Amazon thing happened. Whoa, oh, okay. And tomorrow it'll be something else, and we'll have forgotten about the entire, like one of the biggest tech companies in the world just saying, yeah, never mind, I'm done with the games. I'm Googling it. See ya. It's wild.
Yes. So that's I did have one final question for you. We'll see if this ends up holding up. Tell the future a bit. In the World Series, we got the Blue Jays up 3-2 over the Dodgers. This will probably go live watch on Saturday. So we can either be horribly wrong or like dead on, and they're 3-3, and they're going for the Game 7. Who do you think's going to take it?
I am a very fervent Dodger hater.
Yeah, I think that's most of baseball, to be honest.
I hate the Dodgers more than I like anything. My team's the Padres. As long as the
Okay, that makes
Dodgers
sense.
lose, I'm fine with whatever the Padres do. Like I don't even care. So I am like a well-known and highly qualified Dodger hater. So let's go Jays.
Yep.
Jays 12, Dodgers 2.
Okay.
Break out the back bacon. We're gonna get some Molsons and Tim Hortons and have a good time.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Dodgers stuff. It's just sometimes you see Shohei Ohtani do something crazy in a game like that. He had that game where he struck out a bunch of people and hit 3 home runs. Something you're like, man, I gotta kind of
respect. He ain't pitching Saturday.
That's no, he's not. But
like I like individual Dodgers. I lived in LA a long time. I went to a lot of Dodger games. I owned a Dodger jersey, but I don't want them to win a World Series. I want the panning of the crowd showing sad Dodger fan. Like that is my joy. It's like, look at sad Dodger fan. I know it makes me a terrible person and that's awful, but there's something really just beautiful about a really sad Dodger fan.
Well, this is a fun conversation, Matt. I appreciate you taking some time joining me here. I'll have a link down below to your social media account. That work? Or if there's anything else, you can let me know and I can drop it down there for you too.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm a big fan of Newswave. I watch it every day. Part of my morning routine. Thank you for doing it. Keeps me informed. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I've been trying to keep it as that morning block for people. Cause back when I was younger, I had like the G4 TV after school, like the block. And I'm like, I would like to have that again for something. So I'll just,
it's part of my daily, man. I check in on that every day. So that's, I really appreciate what you do.
I appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, I'll have links down below for Matt's accounts in the description and we'll see you guys next time.